Welcome to Executive Order Watch.
The immigrants have arrived.
I know. I have the package.
The Notice of Availability published by the Bureau of Ocean One Energy Management, Notice of Availability of the 2029 National Outer Continental Shelf Oil and Gas 3 Leasing Proposed Final Program and Final Programmatic Environmental Impact Statement. 6OR. During the period B7 beginning on the date of the enactment of this section, and 8 ending on the date that is 2 years after the date on which 9 the last lease sale required to be held under this section 10 is held. With respect to each lease sale held, lease issued, 11 any activity that requires a federal authorization, and 12 is associated with a lease issued pursuant to this title. The 13 Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act, or Section 5264 of 14 Public Law 117, 169 in the Gulf of America, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Adherence with the biological opinion shall satisfy the Secretary's obligations under the Endangered Species Act of 1973 and the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972. The final programmatic environmental impact statement referenced in the Notice of Availability, titled Final Programmatic Environmental Impact Statement for the 2017-2022 Outer Continental Shelf Oil and Gas Leasing Program 81 Fed Reg 83870, published November 22nd, 612, 2016. The record of decision related to such final programmatic environmental impact statement and the final environmental impact statement referenced in the Notice of Availability titled Final Environmental Impact Statement for Outer Continental Shelf, Gulf of Mexico 2017-2022 Oil and Gas Lease Sales 249, 250, 251, 252, 253, 254, 256, 257, 259, and 261 shall satisfy the Secretary's obligations under the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969 and Division A of Subtitle 3 of Title 54 United States Code. The consistency determinations prepared by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management under Section 307 of the Coastal Zone Management Act of 1972 for lease sale 261 for the states of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida shall satisfy the Secretary's obligations under that section. If the Secretary receives an acceptable bid for an area offered in a lease sale held under this section, the Secretary shall, in accordance with Section 8 of the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act, accept the highest acceptable bid for such area. 613. Not later than 90 days after the date on which the applicable lease sale ends, issue a lease of the area to the highest responsible qualified bidder. And nomination of areas for inclusion in SGL adjacent to the waters of the state and unleased and available for leasing. G-Service not later than 30 days after the date on which the Secretary receives a complete application pursuant to Section 551.5 of Title 30, Code of Federal Regulations, to conduct a geological or geophysical survey pursuant to oil and gas activities on the the Secretary shall establish a process through which the governor of a state may nominate for leasing under a lease sale held under this section an area of the Outer Continental Shelf that is inclusion of nominated area. If under paragraph the governor of a state nominates an area described in that paragraph for leasing under a lease sale held under this section, The Secretary shall include the area in the next scheduled lease sale under subsection 614. Outer Continental Shelf. The Secretary shall approve such one application. LS2 FINIS 261.3. 4. L. Easing revenue certainty. A lease awarded under Lease Sale 259 or Lease Sale 261, which has been fully executed by the Secretary, shall not be set aside, vacated, enjoined, suspended, or canceled except in accordance with Section 5 of the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act. No additional terms or conditions. The Secretary shall not impose any additional terms or conditions on a lease awarded under lease sale 259 or lease sale 261 which has been fully executed by the Secretary, that were not included in the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management Final Notice of Sale titled Gulf of Mexico Outer Continental Shelf Oil and Gas Lease Sale 259-88 Fed Reg 12404, published February 27, 2023, or the final notice of sale titled Gulf of Mexico Outer Continental Shelf Oil and Gas Lease Sale 261. 6. JR Section 23 of the One Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act is amended to read as follows. 3. Any action of the Secretary to approve, require for modification of, or disapprove any exploration plan, Devil 5 Oppment and production plan, bidding procedure, lease sale, 6 lease issuance, or permit or authorization related to oil 7 and gas exploration, development or production under 8 this act, or any inaction by the Secretary resulting in the 9 failure to hold a lease sale under EDROFO law require tending oil and gas lease sales on the Outer Continental Shelf. 11 shall be subject to judicial review only in a United States 12 Court of Appeals for a circuit in which an affected state 13 is located. 14. In this section, 15, 16, 17, 18, 9, 20, 21, 22, 23 biological opinion. The term biology 24 cal opinion 25. Acceptable bid. The term acceptable bid means a bid that meets the requirements of the document published by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management titled Summary of Procedures for Determining Bid Adequacy at Offshore Oil and Gas Lease Sales effective March 2016, with Central Gulf of Mexico Sale 241 and Eastern Gulf of Mexico Sale 226. 616 means the biological opinion issued by the National Marine Fisheries Service titled Biological Opinion on the Federally Regulated Oil and Gas Program Activities in the Gulf of Mexico and the Incidental Take Statement ASO, cited with such biological opinion, and does not include sections 3.3.1 through 3.33 of such biological opinion. The term lease means an oil and gas lease. Sale 259. The term lease sale 259 means the lease sale held by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management on March 29, 2023. Lease sale 261. The term lease sale 261 means the lease sale held by the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management on December 20th, 2023. Outer Continental Shelf. The term Outer Continental Shelf has the meaning given such term in Section 2 of the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act. S. The term Secretary means the Secretary of the Interior. 617. SEC 80,172. Offshore commingling. The Secretary of the Interior shall approve operator 2 requests to commingle production from multiple reservoirs 3 within a single wellbore completed on the Outer Continental Shelf of the Gulf of America unless conclusive EV5 dents establishes that such commingling 6 could not be conducted in a safe manner, or 7 would result in the ultimate recovery from 8 such formations being reduced. 9 SEC 80173. Limitations on amount of distributed 10 qualified Outer Continental Shelf 1112 Section 105 of the Gulf of Mexico Energy Secu 13 RIDI Act of 2006 is amended 14. In subparagraph by striking at 15 the end 16. In subparagraph by striking 2055, 17 and inserting 2024 and 18. By adding at the end the following 19. $650 million for each of fiscal years 2020, 25 through 2034 and 21. $500 million for each of fiscal years 22, 2035 through 2055. 618. Part 9 Renewable Energy. SEC 80,181. Renewable energy fees on federal lands. ARs. Calculation of acreage rent rate. E. The amount of an acreage rent collected under paragraph shall be determined using the following equation. Acreage rent equal AB. For purposes of paragraph. The letter A means the per acre rate. The letter B means the encumbrance factor. The letter C means the annual adjustment factor. I in general. Under the second sentence of Section 504 of the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976, the Secretary shall, subject to paragraph and not later than January 1st of each calendar year, collect from the holder of a right-of-way for a renewable energy project an acreage rent in an amount based on the equation described in paragraph. 619. The letter D means the year and the term of the right-of-way. Payment until production. The holder of a right-of-way for a renewable energy project shall pay an acreage rent collected under paragraph until the date on which energy generation begins. I, the Secretary shall, subject to paragraph, annually collect a capacity fee from the holder of a right-of-way for a renewable energy project based on the amount described in paragraph. See calculation of capacity fee. The amount of a capacity fee collected under paragraph shall be equal to the greater of an amount equal to the acreage rent described in subsection 4.58% of the gross proceeds from the sale of electricity produced by the renewable energy project. M. Use reduction factor. The holder of a right-of way for a wind energy generation project may request that the Secretary apply a 10% multiple use reduction factor to the 620 amount of a capacity fee determined under paragraph by submitting to the Secretary an application for approval. A. The Secretary may approve an application submitted under subparagraph if not less than 25% of the land within the area of the right-of-way is authorized for use, occupancy, or development with respect to an activity other than the generation of wind energy for the entirety of the year in which the capacity fee is collected. L8 determination. If the Secretary approves an application under subparagraph for a wind energy generation project after the date on which the holder of the right-of-way for the project begins paying a capacity fee, the Secretary shall apply the multiple use reduction factor to the capacity fee in the following years. Under this subparagraph, the Secretary may not refund the holder of a right-of-way for the difference in the amount of a capacity fee paid in a previous year. 621. Project a late payment fee if the Secretary does not receive payment for the acreage rent under subsection or the capacity fee under subsection by the date that is 15 days after the date on which the payment was due. Termination of right-of-way. The Secretary may terminate a right-of-way for a renewable energy project if the Secretary does not receive payment for the acreage rent under subsection or the capacity fee under subsection by the date that is 90 days after the date on which the payment was due. RATA, the Secretary shall document, verify, and make publicly available the respective amount of wind and solar energy revenues collected under this section on the Department of the Interior's Natural Resources Revenue Data website. EFC Section 3103 of the Energy Act of 2020 is repealed. D. In this section, annual adjust factor. The term annual adjustment factor means 3%. E. Encumbrance factor. The term encumbrance factor means 622. 100% for solar energy generation facilities. An amount determined by the Secretary not less than 10% for wind energy generation facilities. Per acre rate. The term per acre rate means the average of per acre pastureland rental rates published in the Cash Rent Survey by the National Agricultural Statistics Service for the state in which the right-of-way is located over the 5 calendar year period preceding the issuance or renewal of the right-of-way. The term project means a system described in Section 2801.9 of Title 43, Code of Federal Regulations. Public lands. The term public lands means public lands as such term is defined in Section 103 of the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976, and the lands of the National Forest System as described in Section 11 of the Forest. 623. And Rangeland Renewable Resources Planning Act of 1974. Renewable Energy Project. The term renewable energy project means a project located on public lands that uses wind or solar energy to generate energy. The term secretary means the Secretary of the Interior with respect to land controlled or administered by the Secretary of the Interior. The Secretary of Agriculture with respect to the lands of the National Forest System controlled or administered by the Secretary of Agriculture. SEC 80,182. Renewable Energy Revenue Sharing. Disposition of revenues. Beginning on January 1st, 2026, the amounts collected from a renewable energy project as bonus bids, rentals, fees, 624. 25% shall be paid from amounts in the general fund of the Treasury to each county within the boundaries of which the revenue is derived, to be allocated among each such county based on the percentage of land from which the revenue is derived. Payments to states and counties. In general, the amounts paid to states and counties under paragraph shall be used consistent with Section 35 of the Mineral Leasing Act. Payments in lieu of taxes. A payment to a county under paragraph shall be in addition to a payment in lieu of taxes. 625. Received by the county under Chapter 69 of Title 131 United States Code. The amounts required to be paid under paragraph for an applicable 4 fiscal year shall be made available not later 5 than the fiscal year that immediately follows 6 the fiscal year for which the amounts were selected. D. In this section 9. C. The term covered land 10 means land that is 11. Public lands administered by the Sec. 12 Retary and 13. Not excluded from the development of 14 solar or wind energy under 15. A land use plan or 16. Other federal law. 17. B. Public lands. The term public lands 18 means 19. Public lands as such term is defined in 20 Section 103 of the Federal Land Policy and 21 Management Act of 1976, 22 and 23. Lands of the National Forest System 24, as described in Section 11 of the Forest and 25. 626. Rangeland Renewable Resources Planning Act of 1974. Renewable Energy Project. The term renewable energy project means a system described in Section 2801.9 of Title 43. Code of Federal Regulations, located on covered land that uses wind or solar energy to generate energy. The term secretary means the Secretary of the Interior with respect to land controlled or administered by the Secretary of the Interior. The Secretary of Agriculture with respect to the lands of the National Forest System controlled or administered by the Secretary of Agriculture. 627. Subtitle B. Water, Wildlife, and 1 Fisheries 2. SEC 80,201. Rescission of funds for investing in 3 coastal communities and Climate Re 4-5. There is hereby rescinded the unobligated balance of 6 funds made available by Section 40001 of Public Law 7-117-169. SEC 02. Rescission of funds for facilities of NA National Oceanic and Atmospheric Admin Administration and National Marine Sank 1112. There is hereby rescinded the unobligated balance of 13 funds made available by Section 4002 of Public Law 14117, 169. SEC 8020, surface water storage enhancement. 16. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is 17 appropriated to the Secretary of the Interior. Acting 18 through the Commissioner of Reclamation for fiscal year 1920-25. Out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $2 billion to remain available through September 21st, 2034 for construction and associated AC-22 activities that increase the capacity of existing Bureau of 23 Reclamation surface water storage facilities in a manner 24 as determined by the Secretary. Provided that for the 25. 628. Purposes of Section 203 of the Reclamation Reform Act 1 of 1982 or Section 3404 of the Rec. 2 Lamation Projects Authorization and Adjustment Act of 3/1992. A contract or agreement in 4 entered into pursuant to this section shall not be treated as 5 a new or amended contract. None of the funds provided 6 under this section shall be reimbursable or subject to 7 matching or cost share requirements. SEC 80,204, Water Conveyance Enhancement. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is 10 appropriated to the Secretary of the Interior, Acting 11 through the Commissioner of Reclamation for fiscal year 12-2025, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise 13 appropriated, $500 million to remain available through September 14th, 2034 for construction and associated AC-15 activities that restore or increase the capacity of existing BU-16 row of reclamation conveyance facilities in a manner as 17 determined by the Secretary. None of the funds provided 18 under this section shall be reimbursable or subject to 19 matching or cost share requirements. 20. 629. Subtitle C Federal Lands 1. SEC 80,301. Prohibition on the implementation of 2 the Rock Springs Field Office, YO3 Ming Resource Management Plan. The Secretary of the Interior shall not implement, add 5 minister, or enforce the record of decision and approved 6 resource management plan, referred to in the notice of 7 availability titled Notice of Availability of the record of 8 decision and approved resource management plan for 9. The Rock Springs Field Office, Wyoming, published by the 10 Bureau of Land Management on January 7, 2025. 12 SEC 8032. Prohibition on the implementation of 13. The Buffalo Field Office, Wyoming, RE14 Source Management Plan. 15. The Secretary of the Interior shall not implement, add 16 minister, or enforce the record of decision and approved 17 Marine Resource Management Plan Amendment referred to in the 18 Notice of Availability titled Notice of Availability of the 19 Record of Decision and Approved Resource Management 20. Plan Amendment for the Buffalo Field Office, Wyoming 21, published by the Bureau of Land Management on November 22/27, 2024. 3. 630. SEC 80,303. Prohibition on the implementation of 1. The Miles City Field Office, Montana 2 Resource Management Plan. The Secretary of the Interior shall not implement, add 4 minister, or enforce the record of decision and approved 5 Resource Management Plan Amendment referred to in the 6 Notice of Availability titled Notice of Availability of the 7 Record of Decision and Approved Resource Management 8. Plan Amendment for the Miles City Field Office, Montana, published by the Bureau of Land Management on November 10, 2024. Of an SEC 80304. Prohibition on the implementation of 12. The North Dakota Resource Manage 1314. The Secretary of the Interior shall not implement, add 15 minister, or enforce the record of decision and approved 16 Resource Management Plan referred to in the Notice of 17 Availability titled Record of Decision and approved RE18 Source Management Plan for the North Dakota Resource 19. Management Plan Environmental Impact Statement 20 North Dakota, published by the Bureau of Land Management 21 Men on January 15th, 2025. 631. SCC 80,305. Prohibition on the implementation of 1. The Colorado River Valley Field of 2 FICE and Grand Junction Field Office 3 Resource Management Plans. The Secretary of the Interior shall not implement, add 5 minister, or enforce the records of decision and approved 6 resource management plans referred to in the Notice of 7 Availability, titled Availability of the Records of Decision 8 and approved resource management plans for the Grand 9. Junction Field Office and the Colorado River Valley Field 10 Office, Colorado, published by the Bureau of Land Man 11 Agement on October 22nd, 2024. 12 SCC 80306. Rescission of Forest Service funds. 3rd SCC 80307. Rescission of National Park Service and 18 Bureau of Land Management funds. 19. There is hereby rescinded the unobligated balances 20 of amounts made available by Section 5221 of Public Law 21-117-169. 22. Paragraph of Section 23001 of Public Law 14-117. 169 is repealed, and all unobligated balances of 15 amounts made available under such paragraph are hereby 16 rescinded. 632. SCC 80,308. Rescission of Bureau of Land Management 1 Men and National Park Service funds. There is hereby rescinded the unobligated balances 3 of amounts made available by Section 50222 of Public Law 4117, 169. 5 SC 0309. Rescission of National Park Service 67. There is hereby rescinded the unobligated balances 8 of amounts made available by Section 50223 of Public Law 9-117, 169. 10 SC 80310. Celebrating America's 250th anniversary. In addition to amounts otherwise available, there is 12 appropriated to the Secretary of the Interior for fiscal year 13-2025, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise I-14 appropriated to remain available through fiscal year 2028-15. $150 million for events, celebrations, and 16 activities related to the observance and commemora 17 shun of the 250th anniversary of the founding of the 18 United States, and 19. $40 million to carry out Executive Order 21934 of July 3rd, 2020, Exec 21 Utive Order 13978 of January 18, 2021, 86 Fed. 22 Reg 6809, and Executive Order 1489 of January 23rd, 2025 to establish and 24 maintain a statuary park to be known as the Na 25 Chenal Garden of American Heroes. 26. 633. SEC 80,311. Long-term contracts for the Forest 1-2 IG. For each of fiscal years 2025-3 through 2034, the Chief of the Forest Service shall enter into not less 5 than 1 long-term contract or agreement with private 6 persons or other public or private entities under Section 7. 14 of the National Forest Management Act with respect to covered National Forest System 9 lands in each region of the Forest Service that contains 10 covered National Forest System lands. Except as provided in paragraphs and the Chief shall enter into contracts or agreements under subsection with Section 3903 of Title 41, United States Code, and Section 14 of the National Forest Management Act. The period of a contract or agreement under subsection shall be for at least 20 years, with options for extensions and renewals as determined by the Chief. See Cancellation Ceilings. A contract or agreement entered into under subsection shall include provisions for a cancellation ceiling consistent. 634. With Section 604 of the Healthy Forests Restoration Act of 2003. Any monies derived from an agreement or contract under this section by the chief shall be deposited in the general fund of the Treasury. DNSLD in this section, the term covered National Forest System lands means the proclaimed National Forest System lands reserved or withdrawn from the public domain of the United States. SEC 80,312, long-term contracts for the Bureau of Land Management. G. For each of fiscal years 25 through 2034, the Director of the Bureau of Land Management shall enter into not less than one long-term contract or agreement with private persons or other public or private entities under Section 1 of the Materials Act of 1947 with respect to vegetative materials on covered public lands. I accept as provided in paragraphs, and the Director shall enter into contracts or agreements under subsection in accordance with Section 3903 of Title 41, United States. 635. Code and Section 2 of the Materials Act of 1947. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11. In selecting locations to enter into 12 long-term contracts or agreements under subsection 13, the Director shall prioritize areas with no existing Wood 14 processing infrastructure. Any monies derived from an Agree 16 meant or contract under this section by the Director shall 17 be deposited in the general fund of the Treasury. 18. CPLD, the term 19 covered public lands has the meaning given the term 20 public lands in Section 103E of the Federal Policy 2021 and Management Act of 1976, except 22 that the term includes Coos Bay Wagon Road Grant Lands 23 and Oregon and California Railroad Grant Lands. 24. The period of a contract or agreement under subsection shall be for at least 20 years, with options for extensions and renewals as determined by the Director. See cancellation ceilings. A contract or agreement entered into under subsection shall include provisions for a cancellation ceiling consistent with Section 604 of the Healthy Forest Restoration Act of 2003. 636. SEC 80,313, Timber Production for the Forest Service. G. Not later than 1 year after the date of enactment of this title, the Secretary of Agriculture, acting through the Chief of the Forest Service or their designee, shall direct timber harvest on covered National Forest System lands in amounts that in total equal or exceed the volume that is 25% higher than the average of the total volume sold on such lands between fiscal years 2020 through 2024, and are in accordance with the applicable forest plan, including the allowable sale quantity or probable sale quantity as applicable of timber applicable to such lands on the date of enactment of this title. D. In this section, over National Forest System. I. In general, except as provided in subparagraph, the term covered National Forest System lands means the proclaimed National Forest System lands reserved or withdrawn from the public domain of the United States. 637. The term covered National Forest System lands does not include two lands 3 that are included in the National 4 Wilderness Preservation System, 5 that are located within a National 6 or state-specific inventoried roadless area 7, established by the Secretary of Agriculture 8 through regulation. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. The forest management activity to be carried out under such authority is consistent with the forest plan applicable to the area. The activity is allowed under the applicable roadless rule governing such lands, including the Idaho Roadless Rule under Subpart C of Part 294 of Title 36, Code of Federal Regulations. The Colorado Roadless Rule under Subpart D of Part 294 of Title 36, Code of Federal Regulations, or 638. Any other Roadless Rule 1, developed after the date of the enactment of this section by the 3 Secretary with respect to a specific state, or 5. On which timber harvesting for 6 any purpose is prohibited by federal 7 U. 8. FRS Plan. The term forest plan means a land and resource management plan pre-10 prepared by the Forest Service for a unit of the NA 11 Channel Forest System pursuant to Section 6 of the 12 Forest and Rangeland Renewable Resources Plan, 13 Ning Act of 1974. 14 SEC 8034. Timber production for the Bureau of 15 Land Management. IG, not later than 1 year after the 17 date of enactment of this title. The Secretary of the NT-18 Rider, acting through the Director of the Bureau of Land 19 Management or their designee, shall direct timber harvest 20 on covered public lands in amounts that 21 in total equal or exceed the volume that is 22. 25% higher than the average of the total vol, 23 sold on such lands between fiscal years 2020-24 through 2024 and 25. 639 are in accordance with the applicable forest plan. D in this section. Covered public lands. E. The term covered public lands does not include lands that are included in the National Wilderness Preservation System, or on which timber harvesting for any purpose is prohibited by federal statute. I. In general, except as provided in subparagraph. The term covered public lands has the meaning given the term public lands in Section 103 of the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976, except that the term includes Coos Bay Wagon Road grant lands and Oregon and California Railroad grant lands. Forest Plan. The term forest plan means a land use plan prepared by the Bureau of Land Management for public lands pursuant to Section 202 of the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976. 640 SEC 80,315 Bureau of Land Management land in Niwan Veda, located in Lyon County, Nevada, identified as Fernley Land Conveyance Boundary on the map entitled Fernley Economic Development Act and dated October 6, 2020. C. As a condition of the conveyance of the federal land under paragraph, the City of Fernley, Nevada shall pay an amount equal to the appraised value determined in accordance with subsection. All costs related to the conveyance of the federal land to the city, including all not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this title. The Secretary of the Interior, in accordance with this section and the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976, shall identify and offer for sale to the City of Fernley, Nevada, all right, title, and interest of the United States in and to the federal land. 641. Fees, appraisals, and other associated administrative costs. I. Not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this title. The Secretary, in accordance with this section and the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976, shall identify and offer for sale all right, title, and interest of the United States in and to federal land located in Clark County, Nevada that has been identified as suitable for disposal in the Las Vegas Resource Management Plan in existence on the date of enactment of this title, as modified existing disposal on the map entitled Southern Nevada Economic Development and Conservation Act Disposal Map and dated February 6, 2025. C. Compliance with local planning. Before carrying out a sale of federal land under paragraph, Clark County shall submit to the Secretary a certification that any entity selected to purchase land through a competitive bidding process under subsection has agreed to comply with. 642. Zoning ordinances of the county. Any master plan for the area approved by the county or region. Affordable housing. I, upon the request Clark County, the Secretary shall make the federal land identified as modified existing disposal on the map entitled Southern Nevada Economic Development and Conservation Act Disposal Map and dated February 6th, 2025, available at less than fair market value for affordable housing, in accordance with Section 7 of the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act of 1998. Exemption from notice of realty action requirement. If any entity seeks to use covered land for affordable housing purposes under subparagraph, the entity shall not be required to comply notice of realty action requirements with respect to the covered land, but before using the covered land for affordable housing purposes, shall provide for a period of not less than 14 days aid. 643. Quate public notice of the use of the covered land. S. Nothing in this section shall be construed to affect federal lands previously identified for disposal under the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act of 1998, nor the disposition of proceeds for such lands prior to the date of enactment of this title. Not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this title, the Secretary, in accordance with this section and the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976, shall identify and offer for sale all right, title, and interest of the United States and to federal land located in Washoe County, Nevada, that has been identified as suitable for disposal in the Carson City Consolidated Resource Management Plan in existence on the date of enactment of this title, or as BLM land for disposal on the map entitled Washoe County Land Disposals and dated February 7th, 25. 644. Evaluation of additional land for potential disposal. General. Secretary shall, not later than 1 year after the date of enactment of this title, evaluate the parcels of federal land depicted as additional BLM land potentially available for disposal on the map entitled Washoe County Land Disposals and dated February 7th, 2025, to assess the suitability of the evaluated federal land for disposal in accordance Section 203 of the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976. The parcels of federal land identified by the Secretary as suitable for disposal under subparagraph may be offered for sale in accordance with this section. Joint selection required. Sean regarding suitability for affordable. IN general. The Secretary and Washoe County shall jointly select which parcels of the federal land described in paragraph and identified as suitable for disposal in 645. Subparagraph to offer for sale under this subsection. D. During the selection process under subparagraph, the Secretary and Washoe County shall evaluate whether any parcels of the federal land described in that subparagraph are suitable for affordable housing. If a parcel of federal land is determined to be suitable for affordable housing under subparagraph on request of a state or local governmental entity, the applicable parcel of federal land shall be made available at less than fair market value to the governmental entity, in accordance with Section 7 of the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act of 1998, Public Law 105-263. O 112 stat 2349. The exact acreage and legal description of a parcel of federal land to be conveyed under subparagraph shall be determined by a survey satisfactory to the Secretary. C. Compliance with local planning and before carrying out a sale of Fed. 646. Arrow land under paragraph. Washoe County shall submit to the Secretary a certification that any entity selected to purchase land through a competitive bidding process under subsection has agreed to comply with Washoe County zoning ordinances and any master plan for the area approved by Washoe County or region. The exclusion from sale. At the request of Washoe County, the Secretary shall postpone or exclude from sale all or a portion of the federal land described in paragraph. Affordable housing. D. Determination regarding suitability for affordable housing. Not later than 90 days after the date of enactment of this title, the Secretary shall conduct a review of the federal land described in subparagraph to determine the suitability of the federal land for affordable housing. A. Upon the request of a state or local governmental entity, the Secretary shall make the federal land described in subparagraph F available at less than fair market value for affordable housing in accord. 647. Ants with Section 7 of the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act of 1998. Description of federal land. The federal land referred to in subparagraphs and is the land identified as BLM land for disposal only for affordable housing on the map entitled Washoe County Land Disposals and dated February 7th, 2025. Exemption from notice of realty action requirement. If any entity seeks to use covered land for affordable housing purposes under subparagraph, the entity shall not be required to comply notice of realty action requirements with respect to the covered land, but before using the covered land for affordable housing purposes, shall provide for a period of not less than 14 days adequate public notice of the use of the covered land. Sale or exchange of eligible land. 648. The authorization of conveyance. Not later than 2 years after the date of the enactment of this title, the Secretary, in accordance with this section and subject to valid existing rights, shall conduct sales or exchanges of all right, title, and interest of the United States in and to the eligible land. Joint selection required. After providing public notice, the Secretary and the county shall jointly select parcels of eligible land to be offered for sale or exchange under subparagraph. An exchange of eligible land under subparagraph shall be consistent with Section 206 of the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976. Equal value exchange. In general, the value of the eligible land and private land to be exchanged under subparagraph shall be equal. 649. Shall be made equal in accordance with subclause 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. The owner of the private land making a cash equalization payment to the Secretary. Adding private land to the exchange. Removing eligible land from the exchange. Surplus of eligible. With respect to the eligible land and private land to be exchanged under subparagraph. If the value of the eligible land exceeds the value of the private land, the value of the eligible land and the private land shall be equalized by surplus of private. With respect to the eligible land and private land to be exchanged under subparagraph. If the value of the private. 651.34. The Secretary 5 making a cash equalization 6 payment to the owner of the 7 private land, in accordance 8 with Section 206 of the 9 Federal Land Policy and 10 Management Act of 1976-11, 12. Adding eligible 13 land to the exchange, or 14. Removing private 15 land from the exchange. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Land exceeds the value of the eligible land, the value of the private land and the eligible land shall be equalized by A. To the extent practicable. The Secretary shall seek to enter into agreements with one or more owners of private land adjacent to the eligible land for the exchange of the private land for the eligible land. If the Secretary determines that the exchange would consolidate federal land ownership and facilitate improved federal land management. 651. Postponement or exclude. The Secretary or the county may postpone or exclude from sale or exchange all or a portion of the eligible land jointly selected under subparagraph for emergency, ecological or safety reasons. Sale of encumbered land. A authorization of conveyance. Not later than 2 years after the date of the enactment of this title, and subject to valid existing rights held by third parties, the Secretary shall offer to convey to qualified entities for fair market value the remaining right, title, and interest of the United States and to the encumbered land. To convey. Not later than 180 days after the date on which the Secretary. 652. Receives a fair market offer from a qualified entity for the conveyance of encumbered land, the Secretary shall accept the fair market value offer. not later than 180 days after the date of acceptance by the Secretary of an offer from a qualified entity under subparagraph and completion of a sale for all or part of the applicable portion of encumbered land to the highest qualified entity. Secretary, by delivery of an appropriate deed, patent, or other valid instrument of conveyance, shall convey to the qualified entity all remaining right, title, and interest of the United States in and to the applicable portion of the encumbered land. M. Subject to valid existing rights held by third parties on delivery of the instrument of conveyance to the qualified entity under subparagraph, the prior interests in the locatable minerals and the right to use the surface for mineral purposes held by the qualified entity under a mining claim, mill site, tunnel site, or any other federal land use authorization applicable to the encumbered land in 653. Included in the instrument of conveyance shall merge with all right, title, and interest conveyed to the qualified entity by the United States under this section to ensure that the qualified entity receives fee simple title to the purchased encumbered land. D. In this subsection. C. The term county means Pershing County, Nevada. E. Eligible land. The term eligible land means any land administered by the Secretary, acting through the Director of the Bureau of Land Management, that is within the area identified on the map as Checkerboard Lands Resolution Area that is designated for disposal by the Secretary through 654. That is the land identified on the map as additional lands eligible for disposal. That is not encumbered land. To qualified entity. The term qualified entity means with respect to a portion of encumbered land, the owner of a mining claim, mill site, or tunnel site located on a portion of the encumbered land on the date of the enactment of this title, and a successor in interest of an owner described in clause E. Encumbered land. The term encumbered land means any land administered by the Secretary, acting through the Director of the Bureau of Land Management, within the area identified on the map as Checkerboard Resolution Area that is encumbered by mining claims, mill sites, or tunnel sites. The term map means the map titled Pershing County Checkerboard Lands Resolution and dated July 8, 2024. 655. M. Method of sale. The sale or exchange one of eligible lands under this section shall be 2. Through a competitive bidding process. 3. For not less than fair market value, in 4 accordance with paragraphs and 5. Subject to valid existing rights. Any sales or exchanges car 7 ride out under this section shall be for not less than 8 fair market value, based on an appraisal that is conducted in accordance with 10. The Uniform Appraisal Standards for 11 federal land acquisitions, and 12. The Uniform Standards of Professional 13 Appraisal Practice. 14. Not later than 2 years 15 after the date of the enactment of this title and 16 every 5 years thereafter, the Secretary shall 17. Conduct a mass appraisal of eligible 18 land to be sold or exchanged under this section. 19. Prepare an evaluation analysis for each 20 land transaction under this section. And 21. Make available to the public the results 22 of the mass appraisals conducted under sub 23 paragraph 24. 656. C. The qualified entity or entity selected one through a competitive bidding process to purchase or exchange land as appropriate shall pay all costs associated 3 with sales or exchanges carried out under this section. Amounts received 5 from the sale of land under this section shall be deposited 6 in the general fund of the Treasury. Not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this title, the Secretary shall finalize the maps and legal descriptions of the land to be sold or exchanged under this section. Controlling document. In the case of a discrepancy between the maps and legal descriptions finalized under paragraph, the map shall control. C. The Secretary may correct minor errors in the maps or the legal descriptions finalized under paragraph. MAP on file. The maps and legal descriptions finalized under paragraph shall be kept on file and available for public inspection in each appropriate office of the Bureau of Land Management. 657. RC. Nothing in this section shall be construed as authorizing the conveyance of to any lands administered by the National Park Service. SEC 80,316. Forest Service land in Nevada. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 13. IN General. The Secretary and Washoe 14 County shall jointly select which parcels of covered 15 federal land to offer for sale under subsection. During the selection 17 process under paragraph, the Secretary and 18 Washoe County shall evaluate whether any parcels 19 of the federal land described in that paragraph are 20 suitable for affordable housing. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. IG, not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this title. The Secretary of Agriculture, in accordance with this section, shall identify and offer for sale, subject to subsection, title, and interest of the United States in and to covered federal land located in Washoe County, Nevada. C. If a parcel of federal land is determined to be suitable for affordable housing under paragraph, on request of a state or local governmental entity, the applicable parcel of federal. 658. Land shall be made available at less than fair market value to the governmental entity in accordance with Section 7 of the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act of 1998. The exact acreage and legal description of a parcel of federal land to be conveyed under paragraph shall be determined by a survey satisfactory to the Secretary. C. Compliance with local planning and zoning laws. Before carrying out a sale of covered federal land under subsection, Washoe County shall submit to the Secretary a certification that any entity selected to purchase covered federal land through a competitive bidding process under subsection has agreed to comply with any master plan for the area approved by Washoe County or region. P. Exclusion from sale. At the request of Washoe County, the Secretary shall postpone or exclude from sale all or a portion of the federal land described in subsection. 659. Determination regarding suitability for affordable housing. Not later than 90 days after the date of enactment of this title, the Secretary shall conduct a review of the additional federal land to determine the suitability of the additional federal land for affordable housing. A. Upon the request of a state or local governmental entity and subject to valid existing rights, the Secretary shall make the additional federal land available at less than fair market value for affordable housing, in accordance with Section 7 of the Southern Nevada Public Land Management Act of 1998. AMS. M. Method of sale. The sale or exchange of any lands under this section shall be through a competitive bidding process, except as provided in subsections, and for not less than fair market value in accordance with paragraphs, subject to valid existing rights. Any sales or exchanges carried out under this section shall be for not less than 660. Fair market value based on an appraisal that is conducted in accordance with 2. The uniform appraisal standards for 3 federal land acquisitions, and 4. The uniform standards of professional 5 appraisal practice. Not later than 2 years 7 after the date of the enactment of this title and 8 every 5 years thereafter, the Secretary shall conduct a mass appraisal of eligible 10 land to be sold or exchanged under this section. 11. Prepare an evaluation analysis for each 12 land transaction under this section. And 13. Make available to the public the results 14 of the mass appraisals conducted under sub 15 paragraph. CC. Any entity selected to 17 purchase covered federal land or additional federal land 18 under this section shall pay all costs associated with the 19 sale. DP. The proceeds from 21, the sale of additional federal land and covered federal 22 land required under this section shall be deposited in the 23 General Fund of the Treasury. MLD 661. Not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this title, the Secretary shall finalize the maps and legal descriptions of the additional federal land and covered federal land to be sold under this section. Controlling document. In the case of a discrepancy between the maps and legal descriptions finalized under paragraph, the map shall control. C. The Secretary and Washoe County, by mutual agreement, may correct minor errors in the maps or the legal descriptions finalized under paragraph. MAP on file. The maps and legal descriptions finalized under paragraph shall be kept on file and available for public inspection in each appropriate office of the Bureau of Land Management. RC. Nothing in this section shall be construed as authorizing the conveyance of any lands administered by the National Park Service. D. In this section, additional federal land. The term additional federal land means the federal land identified as USS land for disposal only for 662. Affordable housing on the map, entitled Washoe 1 County Land Disposals, and dated February 7th, 2025. 3. Covered rural land. The term Cove Ford Federal Land means USFS land for disposal on the map entitled Washoe County Land 6 Disposal dated February 7th, 2025. Surveyor Bureau of MLC. Not later than 10 days after the date of enactment of this title, the Secretary 11 shall convey to the covered entity all right, title, and enter 12 of the United States into the covered land. 13. The conveyance of covered 14 land under this section shall be 15. Subject to valid existing rights, and 16. For not less than fair market value, base 17 on an appraisal that is conducted in accordance 18 with 19. The uniform appraisal standards for 20 federal land acquisitions, and 21. The uniform standards of professional 22 appraisal practice. 23. SEC 80,317, federal land in Utah. 663. COS of C. The covered entity shall pay all costs associated with the conveyances required under subsection. PFC. The proceeds from the conveyances required under subsection shall be deposited in the general fund of the Treasury. Not later than 120 days after the date of enactment of this title, the Secretary shall finalize the maps and legal descriptions of the covered land to be conveyed under this section. Controlling document. In the case of a discrepancy between the maps and legal descriptions finalized under paragraph, the map shall control. C. The Secretary and the covered entity, by mutual agreement, may correct minor errors in the maps or the legal descriptions finalized under paragraph. PIO. The maps and legal descriptions finalized under paragraph shall be kept on file and available for public inspection in each appropriate office of the Forest Service. 664. RC. Nothing in this section 1 shall be construed as authorizing the conveyance of 2. Any lands administered by the National Park Service. D. In this section, the term covered entity means the following. Beaver County, Utah, with respect to covered land depicted on the map entitled Beaver County Land Conveyance and dated March 8, 2025. The City of St. George, Utah, with 11. Respect to covered land depicted on the map NT. City of St. George, Utah Land Convey. 13. And dated March 28, 2025. 14. Washington County, Utah, with 15. Respect to covered land depicted on 16. The map entitled Washington. 17. County Land Conveyance East Half and 18. Dated April 11, 2025 and 19. The map entitled Washington. 20. County land conveyance west half. And dated April 9th, 2025. 22. Washington County Water Concert. 23. Fancy District, with respect to covered land. 24. Depicted on the map entitled Washington County. 25. Date November 24th, 2008, 2138 May 18th, 25 JK00000000000 FRM 064 F and 6662 SFN 621C. Users Johnson. App data roaming soft quad Edwell 11.0 CRCP 11. May 18th, 2025. CMS P-Word 19-3. VF 051825F05825005XML. 665. Water Conservancy District Land Conveyance 1 and dated March 27th, 2025. C. The term covered land 3 means the following 4. On the map entitled Beaver County 5 Land Conveyance and dated March 8th, 2025, 6 the following parcels. 7. The approximately 10.32 acres depicted as Parcel 1. The approximately 10.81 acres to 10 depicted as Parcel 2. The approximately 40.83 acres 12 depicted as Parcel 3. 13. On the map entitled City of St. 14 George, Utah Land Conveyance and dated March 15th, 2025, the following parcels. 16. The approximately 203.37 acres 17 depicted as Airport. 18. The approximately 16.48 acres to 19 depicted as Brigham Road. 20. The approximately 9.57 acres to 21 depicted as Curly Hollow. 22. The approximately 11.52 acres 23 depicted as DeVario Site. 24. 666. The approximately 105.55 acres 1 depicted as Graveyard Dam. The approximately 4.88 acres to 3 depicted as Gunlock Arsenic Plant. The approximately 1.17 acres to 5 depicted as Gunlock Filter Station. The approximately 0.92 acres 7 depicted as Gunlock Number 1. The approximately 0.92 acres to 9 depicted as Gunlock Number 2. The approximately 0.92 acres to 11 depicted as Gunlock Number 3. The approximately 0.92 acres to 13 depicted as Gunlock Number 4. 14. The approximately 0.92 acres 15 depicted as Gunlock Number 5. 16. The approximately 0.92 acres 17 depicted as Gunlock Number 6. 18. The approximately 0.92 acres 19 depicted as Gunlock Number 7. 20. The approximately 1.1 acres D21 depicted as Gunlock Number 8. 22. The approximately 0.92 acres 23 depicted as Gunlock Number 9. 24. 667. The approximately 0.92 acres 1 depicted as Gunlock Number 10. The approximately 4.34 acres 3 depicted as Man O' War Connector. The approximately 36.56 acres 5 depicted as Sun River. The approximately 31.22 acres 7 depicted as Treatment Plant. 8. The approximately 3.75 acres 9 depicted as Virgin River Site. The approximately 82.27 acres 11 depicted as Western Corridor. 13. On the map entitled Washington 14 County Land Conveyance East Half and 15 dated April 11th, 2025, the following parcels. 16. The approximately 330.5 acres 17 depicted as Parcel 1. 18. The approximately 287.02 acres 19 depicted as Parcel 2. The approximately 279.72 acres 21 depicted as Parcel 3. 22. The approximately 10.67 acres 23 depicted as Parcel 4. 24. 668. The approximately 213.56 acres 1 depicted as parcel 6. The approximately 180.51 acres 3 depicted as parcel 11. The approximately 186.14 acres 5 depicted as parcel 12. 6. The approximately 153.74 acres 7 depicted as parcel 13. The approximately 711.56 acres 9 depicted as parcel 15. The approximately 52.28 acres D11 depicted as parcel 16. 12. The approximately 197.52 acres 13 depicted as parcel 17. 14. The approximately 311.5 acres 15 depicted as parcel 19. The approximately 628.76 acres 17 depicted as parcel 20. 18. The approximately 364.31 acres 19 depicted as parcel 21. The approximately 921.52 acres 21 depicted as parcel 22. 22. The approximately 129.77 acres 23 depicted as parcel 23. 24. 669. On the map entitled Washington 1 County Land Conveyance West Half and 2 dated April 9, 2025, the following parcels. 3. The approximately 338.6 acres to 4 depicted as parcel 5. The approximately 487.13 acres 6 depicted as parcel 7. The approximately 121.08 acres 8 depicted as parcel 8. The approximately 64.58 acres 10 depicted as parcel 9. The approximately 62.49 acres to 12 depicted as parcel 10. The approximately 404.63 acres 14 depicted as parcel 14. The approximately 55.01 acres 16 depicted as parcel 18. 17. On the map entitled Washington 18 County Water Conservancy District Land Con, 19 Bayance, and dated March 27, 2025, the full 20 lowing parcels 21. The approximately 35.950362 acres depicted as parcel 01. 23. The approximately 22.833424 acres depicted as parcel 02.
Welcome to Executive Order Watch.
The immigrants have arrived.
I know. I have the package.